The following is a presentation of the Women's Football Alliance.
Week 1 is in the books, and we keep the 15th season celebration going on the road to Canton. Welcome to the Road to Canton. I'm your host, Brian Sweeney, the voice of the Women's Football Alliance Pro Division National Championship game. The first week of the WFA season brought a lot of excitement, including the debut of live broadcasts on the Women's Sports Network. Alex, did anything special stand out to you in this first week?
Well, in addition, of course, to debuting on the Women's Sports Network, the three debuts of the WFA Pro teams, Mile High, Houston, and Alabama, I was very impressed by what I saw from those three teams. All three victorious here in their opening week in the WFA Pro Division. Certainly a lot to look forward to as they move forward, but the thing that stands out to me the most, take a look at the St. Louis Slam. A little bit of rust for St. Louis a season ago, but when you're able to shut out a very high-flying, in the past Minnesota Vixen offense for the first time since 2017, certainly a lot to look forward to for St. Louis moving into this year, and a great week 1 in the WFA.
Let's take a look at the WFA Pro Division Week 1 scores and highlights. The Alabama Fire opened their WFA Pro debut with a 32-6 win over the Division II Derby City Dynamite. The Cali War waged war on the Division III Central Valley Chaos and came away with a 48-0 victory. The Detroit Venom ran into a stingy Division II Columbus Chaos and lost 6-0. The Houston Energy showed that moving to pro was a good choice as they beat the Division II Austin Outlaws 48-0. And in WFA Pro versus WFA Pro games, the Minnesota Vixen moved to 0-4 all-time in the city of St. Louis when they lost to the Slam 20-0. And the Arlington Impact beat in-state rivalries Dallas Elite Mustangs 21-8. In the first of a doubleheader of live sports action for the Women's Sports Network, the DC Divas hosted the Pittsburgh Passion. In a game that paid tribute to the late Franco Harris, an owner of the Pittsburgh Passion, it was the Passion that came away with the victory. Alex, your thoughts on this game?
Well, an effort for the Pittsburgh Passion to remember and reflect on the life of Franco Harris. Pittsburgh Passion did a great job of that. There were some questions, Brian, last week about who would start at quarterback. Alyssa George did for much of the 2022 season. Turned out it was Maria Fatale who got the start at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Passion. She looked great. She was able to connect with her receivers. She made a lot of great plays to the receivers. And what we expected for Pittsburgh a year ago, that middle-of-the-pack offense that we saw, they cruised against the DC Divas defense that was able to hold them in the first quarter, a little bit through quarter 2, but then never really carry the pace of play again in the rest of the way. You take a look at what the DC Divas were able to do. Every time that Pittsburgh went down the field and got a touchdown, they were unable to match that. So the question for me becomes, when you look at how Pittsburgh did, you have, again, the DC Divas offense to be able to look at as well. Congliardi was fine in the early going, but then eventually lost her connection with her receivers and the running game. Deja Scott, we were expecting a big game out of her, but she was stifled by the Pittsburgh Passion defense. You take a look at where this was. It was a close game, but then Pittsburgh eventually just ran away with it. Fatale was too much to handle in the air attack. George was too much to handle in the backfield, and you had great output on offense for the Pittsburgh Passion, who did their best to immortalize Franco Harris.
In the second game of the doubleheader on the Women's Sports Network, the Mile High Blaze proved that they indeed belong in the Pro Division when they beat the Nevada Storm 27-7. Alex, of all games this weekend, this was my favorite to watch.
Well, I think that you saw it as well, of course, over the game itself, where Nevada and Mile High, a season ago when those two teams played, it was a very close matchup, separated by just 5 points. Heading into halftime, where it was, again, a one-touchdown lead. You saw some really good things out of Mile High, but you were waiting for that final push on their offense. The question going into last week was Nevada's offense going to be there? We knew Mo Etchen was at quarterback, but we knew the significant losses Nevada had on offense. It showed itself in this game against Mile High. They struggled to get the ball moving. They struggled to work up and down the field. And especially, too, you had J.J. Sanchez, who was their leading ball carrier in that contest, left the game with a significant injury. And so you look at where Nevada's at in that game. a long pause, a long amount of time where the Nevada Storm weren't necessarily on the field keeping that momentum going. Mile High was able to seize it out of the injury timeout and do all the things that they did well in the course of the last regular season, winning Division II. You take a look at Kimberly Santa-Stephen, she was great. She didn't necessarily have the depth of weapons that we want to see at a WFA Pro level, but she was efficient. She was able to make the throws that she needed to, and they relied on a great running game. Defensively, how many times did we hear the name of the excellent defensive back for the Mile High Blaze? Of course, so young, Leilani Kamal, but she had another great game, shutting down Nevada as the Nevada Storm. Ultimately, at this point, because of this loss to Mile High, one more loss really, and their season might be over. But again, Mile High looked great. 20-point victory over the Nevada Storm. Lots to look forward to in Denver.
So what does a significant other do on game day? How do they support their women's football player when they're at home throughout the week? Lois Cook is back to take another look at something we don't normally see every day.
What is it like to have a significant other as a professional football player?
It depends on if it's after a win or after a loss. She's a running back in the house too.
Welcome, Donnell Floyd.
I'm fiance to a gorgeous, motivated, energetic football player. To see her follow her passion, to see her motivated about something, it drives me. I generally watch the games and I send her messages throughout the game. Just on different plays I notice, different things I see. So she has a lot to read for me after every game.
As a football player, it means a lot to have someone in your corner supporting you, making sure that they can hold down the household while you're out there on the field, and I'm sure vice versa for you when you do your thing. Tell me about a typical game day.
We get the music playing, we get our playlist going. She makes sure she has everything set up. She generally will go to the game before me. I'll come later. Game day is very focused. It's intense focus. She is a very intense person. She has this, this walk she does now. What's the guy's name? Oh, she looks like Conor McGregor. She's walking and her shoulders are swaying back and forth. I'm like, man, she got her. But when she's in her mode.
Okay.
She gets in her mode, and it's a pleasure to see.
What else is typical of living with a football player?
And imagine you have put, you put all your energy into this nice family meal. You put it down, you turn around, and next thing you know, she looks like Fred Flintstone. She's eating half the chicken already. Didn't bother to wait. Didn't give me no water. Didn't use no silverware. But the chicken's gone. That's
Work up an appetite, I guess.
Yeah.
Comes with so much equipment, all the bags and the helmet, the shoulder pads and everything. At what point did you decide, okay, we got to get this organized?
Listen, there's turf everywhere. I came home one day and I saw something and I called her and said, hey, we got mice. we got mice because these pellets on the ground. And she said, no, baby, that's turf. So we don't have mice.
Thank goodness it's not mice. Turf comes right along with the territory.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I got her a nice bucket, put everything in there. I'll get the news. I got practice this day. Okay, well, she's free. No. I have film session. And then oh my goodness. Okay, well, I'll see you when I can.
Busy schedule. Well, my goodness, thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your world with us. As you know, as athletes, as football players, what you do is so important to what we're able to do on the field. So thank you for all of that support that you give her, because in turn, indirectly, it also supports the team. So.
Absolutely.
And directly, because you're always there. So thank you so much.
No problem at all.
We'll be right back.
Women's Football Alliance wants to thank their sponsors.
Welcome back. Here are this week's Pro Division matchups. The 1-0 Alabama Fire are on the road, where they will face the 1-0 Atlanta Rage of Division II. The 1-0 St. Louis Slam are on the road against the 0-1 Derby City Dynamite of Division II. The 1-0 Arlington Impact hosts the 1-0 OKC Lady Force of Division II. The 0-1 Minnesota Vixen look to rebound from last week when they welcome the 1-0 Nebraska Pride of Division II. The 0-1 Dallas Elite Mustangs also look to get into the win column when they welcome the 0-1 Zydeco Spice of Division III. And in Pro Division head-to-head matchups, the Tampa Bay Inferno open up their season hosting the 0-1 Detroit Venom. Mile High, Pittsburgh, and Houston are on byes. In the early game on the Women's Sports Network, the Boston Renegades welcome the 0-1 DC Divas. The last time Boston lost a game was to the Divas on May 19, 2018. Is it time for a repeat of that performance?
Well, when you take a look, Brian, at the way that the Boston Renegades have formatted their team for this season, they haven't played a game yet. They had that bye in week 1, but you look at the names on the offensive side. You see Ruth Mata, you see Tuti Kusanen, you see Adrian Smith, you see all these great offensive players that the Boston Renegades had coming into last season, returning for another season in 2023. The Boston Renegades are a team that has not lost since 2018, Brian, as you mentioned. And realistically, until a team is able to beat Boston, there is no reason to believe that this team is going to be losing anytime soon. My question, however, for Boston is a question that I imagine many fans of the WFA have. Allison Cahill, in the opening round of the playoffs a season ago against DC, was injured in that contest. She did not play in the conference final against Pittsburgh. She did not play in the WFA Pro Final against Minnesota. The question becomes, in Allison Cahill's return to the field as quarterback, is she going to be a game manager, or is she going to be the quarterback that is the dominant force that we've seen from her over her career? Again, her resume is something that is better than any women's quarterback. Only women's quarterback with 100+ wins. You talk about the amount of times and championships that she's won, not just with the Boston Renegades, but before when they were the Boston Militia. We'll see what kind of a game we get out of Allison Cahill. There's a lot to be wondered about what her health status is, but even still, we said it in Canton last July. If Cahill's not ready to go, Shantae Bonds was able to. And she certainly will be able to again if it comes to that this week against the DC Divas. Something that people look at as well in terms of DC and Boston all time, you see that DC-Boston being a high-scoring matchup. How much of that is Boston's excellence forcing those late, you hate to say garbage time, but those garbage time points for DC? There's a lot of questions certainly to ask. DC goes from the frying pan and into the fire here, going from the conference runner-up last week to now being the conference and WFA Pro champion here with the Boston Renegades. It's going to have to be a perfectly run game plan for DC, realistically, to have a chance in this game. And nothing that DC showed me a week ago against Pittsburgh is giving me enough confidence to believe that they're going to have a chance against Boston. Boston is great. It doesn't matter who they put out on defense. If you're a team that, as Boston did a year ago, more first downs per game than anybody, more first downs per game than anybody at any level of the game, men's or women's. This team, until proven otherwise, Boston has to be the favorite at home, and Boston has to be the favorite all across the WFA.
And we'll be right back.
The Women's Football Alliance wants to thank their sponsors.
Welcome back. This past week, the WFA surpassed 50,000 followers on Facebook. Make sure you're not only following the WFA, but your favorite teams as well. The second game of the week on the Women's Sports Network will feature the Cali War and the Nevada Storm. Alex, after seeing both these teams play last week, what are your opinions on this matchup?
Well, I think when you look at the all-time head-to-head rivalry between the Cali War and the Nevada Storm, you think of the dominance that Cali had over Nevada in the early part of the last decade. Cali fans would go to Reno and call it Cali War East, just because of how dominant Cali was against Nevada. But you and I in a press box in 2021 in Iowa, checking the scores of the WFA and seeing that Nevada had not just beaten Cali, but decisively, all of a sudden the Nevada Storm had arrived, and we saw that last year at the WFA Pro level. What we did not see last week, however, was the significant losses of Nevada in the offseason being filled in by key players. They were able to maintain a pace of play against the Denver-based Mile High Blaze, but they weren't really able to excel on offense as they had in the past. We've seen the Cali War before. We know what this team does. Even if you take the score from last week where they dominated a lower division team, if you take a look at their body of work over the WFA Pro, this is a team that knows how to put up points. They put up the second most points in WFA Pro last year, first most points and yards in 2021. Go all the way back to 2019. Save for Boston, this team has been the offense to beat in the American Conference for the last 5 years. And for Nevada, you go in and you give up 27 points to a Mile High Blaze team that maybe isn't on offense as good as some other teams might be. So you take a look at that, and then you consider how good they are going to be. Brianna Barrett's back for the Cali War. She had a phenomenal year last year, was an All-American. But then you take a look at the big rivalry piece towards this series. Amber Marcucci, who played for the Nevada Storm for each of the last 3 seasons, now making the change over to the Cali War and looking to do damage against her former team. Chantel Nino-Wiggins, if you look for as much of a strong arm, gunslinging quarterback, you could not find one in the WFA more so than her. She commands this offense with pace, poise, and the ability to make the explosive play when it matters. We saw it from Minnesota multiple times last season. We saw just how good Chantel Nino-Wiggins can be. She is a not a game manager, but a game dominator. And when she is on, the WFA should watch out. Right now, to me, Cali War is the favorite. Nevada did not show me enough in week 1 to be able to be competitive in this matchup, save for Cali not having played a WFA Pro opponent last week, and a lot to be desired, certainly, as you make that jump from Division III opponents all the way up to WFA Pro opponents. It's quite a jump. A lot of times we see broadcasts where all of a sudden you play a Division III team, you go up Division II, Division I. There's a reason for that scale. There's a reason for that step, because the WFA Pro teams, more physical, more defensive oriented, and they know how to put up points. Can Nevada do that? We'll find out on Saturday. But until they're able to move that offense with Mo Etchen finding some strength and finding some confidence in her weapons, Cali War should win this matchup 9 times out of 10. And for Nevada, it might be season's over based on where they currently stand in the Massey ratings.
If you have a story idea or maybe a video clip from a Pro Division game that you would like to see on Road to Canton, we now have an email address, roadtocantonshow@gmail.com. For Lois Cook and Alex Westhead, I'm Brian Sweeney, and we'll see you next week on the Road to Canton.
Thank you for watching the preceding presentation from the Women's Football Alliance.